Hey guys, I'm Brenda Breland and I'm here to chat all things health, fitness, mindset, and business. I will be sharing how transforming my body allowed me to transform my life and how you can do the same. So grab a cup of coffee or your favorite cocktail. I'm so excited you're here. Let's get unfiltered.
Welcome back. We are in part 3 of our 3-part hormone series. And in this episode, we are going to dig into all things hormones. We're going to talk about each hormone that we test. I'm going to show you guys, for those of you guys who are watching on Spotify or on YouTube, what our hormone test looks like, as well as go through some client results. So if you guys are joining me on video, you guys are going to be able to follow along. I'm actually going to be going through each hormone that we test with you guys and telling you what they are responsible for. Okay, so first and foremost, we test cortisol. You guys can see here is what a cortisol graph looks like, okay? With cortisol, we want cortisol to start high and kind of plateau down at a pretty normal rate, right? Like that normal rate could kind of slightly decrease throughout the day until you get to night when that cortisol should be at its lowest, right? That is because cortisol is our body's way of regulating stress, our stress response. Okay. It's our fight or flight. It's our body saying, okay, it's time to go, or holy shit, something just scared you, like react, right? That's what cortisol is there for. So the problem is with a lot of women, we see really high cortisol spikes, or we see cortisol all over the place. Well, what happens then is our body is not able to regulate that, which means if we're in a fight or flight mode all the time, we're most likely releasing glucose throughout the day. We should know that if we're releasing glucose, then it's hard for our body to be able to burn fat because we have that glucose in our system. So it's just our body's not gonna be able to tap into its own fat stores if we have a high amount of glucose going throughout our bloodstream throughout the day. So this is why cortisol is really important. So you guys can see here, those of you who are watching, like this client was really, really high. She is literally in fight or flight mode 24/7, which means and gives her some clarity on why she's having a hard time being able to burn fat really at all, especially around her midsection. Okay. So next hormone that I want to dig into is DHEA. Okay. So DHEA is a hormone that your body naturally produces in its adrenal glands. DHEA helps produce other hormones, including testosterone, estrogen, and naturally your DHEA levels peak at like your adulthood, so like 20s and 30s, and then it's going to slowly decline as you get older. Okay. You can see a normal DHEA level here is between 106 and 300. This client was at 108. So we're actually sitting pretty good there for her. She is on the lower end of normal, which is something that we would probably address with her. But overall, that does fit those level ranges. Next, I want to dig into estrogen. And I know, so many of you guys are like estrogen, like estrogen dominance, all the things, right? But I don't think you guys understand that there's multiple different estrogens and that all three of these estrogens play a different role. Okay. So estrogen itself plays an important role just in your normal sexual health, but also in your reproductive health, right? So as you're getting into ovulation and those types of things, that's when your hormones and estrogen might be at a higher rate or at a higher level. So when we look at estrogen, when we test estrogens, we're going to test all three. So your estrone, which is your E1, estradiol, which is your E2, and estriol, which is your E3. Okay. We test all three of these because they all matter. Okay. Yes, some of them are more prevalent during different times of your life based on if you're in conception period of your life, based on if you're on menopause, premenopause, all of these things do affect it, but it doesn't matter how old you are. All of these things still need to be within balance and working together. Otherwise, you are not going to feel good, right? So on here, those of you who are watching, you guys can see where we test all three, and basically what we do is we take that and we get our EQ ratio. That EQ ratio basically looks at those three estrogens together and gives us that ratio, right? The lower the ratio, studies have shown that you're more at risk for those female style cancers like ovarian cancer, cervical cancer, breast cancer, those types of things. So whenever we look at this, we want to kind of normally see that EQ ratio within that range, just to make sure that we are less likely to have any of those issues. Given that our estrogens are off with this specific client, you guys can see her estrone and her estradiol are good, but her estriol is low, right? She is actually really pretty low on that. So being able to get that estriol up just a little bit would be able to bring that EQ ratio back into a good range where we wouldn't even have to worry about it. And this estriol is something that you can bring up very easily, naturally. Next, we're going to get into progesterone. So progesterone itself is responsible for regulating the menstrual cycle, supporting pregnancy. Its levels in your blood vary throughout each menstrual cycle and drop when a woman goes through menopause and her period stops. Really, progesterone affects your overall sex drive in general, right? So with the specific client, the ratio for a reference interval, I'm going to use quotation marks with a reference interval, is 127 to 446. So you guys, that's a huge range, right? How, like, saying you can be between 127 and 446 and be normal is absolutely crazy to me, but that's what they say, right? This client is at 102, which means they are very low. So not only do we see low estriol and low progesterone, but we can also see how those numbers play a part with our EQ ratio and our PEG ratio. Okay. Last but not least, we're just going to jump into progesterone or testosterone really quick. Testosterone is so underrated. I think so many, women think, oh, men just need testosterone, but I honestly think that 99.5% of Americans are low in testosterone, and this is causing issues. Just based on a standard American diet. Okay. So as we know, testosterone helps with muscle growth, maintenance, and repair of the reproductive tissues, your bone density, your bone mass, human behaviors, your mental cognitive function. It affects all the things, right? So whenever we think of testosterone, ladies, we really need to remember that this is something that is very important for us and have a good balance of, okay? So many people go in and say, I need my hormones tested. Well, then they just test your thyroid and they just test, your estrone. They don't test all these things. And then you realize you still feel like shit and you don't have any answers. And that's why, right? If your progesterone's low or your testosterone's low, you are most likely going to feel that. You're going to have low energy. You're probably not going to have any sex drive at all. If you do have sex, you may not even be enjoying it because of the effects that has on your vaginal walls, all of the things, right? So just remember that no matter what we hear on the outside, testosterone plays a really big role in women's overall health, mental, physical, all the things. Okay. So as we kind of looked at these things, I want to bring up estrogen dominance. Okay. This is something that you guys hear all the time. And what drives me crazy is so many people say, oh, I'm estrogen dominant. I'm like, okay, what does that look like? They're like, I don't know. I just know I am. Okay, that's great. How are you treating it? Well, I got online and I got these supplements. I'm like, okay, here's the problem with this, you guys. Estrogen dominant can be from different variations, right? So if you're estrogen dominant, but your testosterone and progesterone are low, that would be treated differently than if you're estrogen dominant and you had high testosterone and low progesterone, right? The number of combinations of things that you need to be doing to be able to fix these is not found in an Amazon supplement. It's just not, let alone, you don't even know what the hell is an Amazon supplement. So you probably should stay away from them in general, unless it's a reputable brand. And there's very few of those anymore on Amazon. Let's talk about why estrogen dominance matters and why it plays a part and why women have such a hard time burning fat. So what happens is when we have estrogen dominance, it impacts our sugar metabolism. Okay. So what happens is fat buildup doesn't get broken down as easily. Our energy levels aren't utilized and our body doesn't burn fat the way it should. It affects our neurotransmitters production, and that in itself leads to anxiety, depression, all kinds of things, right? Not to mention when you have a high estrogen, as we talked about before, if that EQ ratio is high, you're going to be at higher risk for thyroid dysfunction, breast cancer, uterine fibroids, and autoimmune diseases. Okay. So estrogen dominance itself is something that I see with the majority of my women who have had a hard time burning fat, have had a hard time losing weight around their midsection, even on their hips. If you have that side bulge. Some people call them saddlebags. I do not call them that, but you get what I'm saying. Okay. So estrogen plays a huge role. So what I want to show you guys now, those of you guys who are watching on the screen with me, is I want to show you guys what it looks like when I start with a client with hormone testing and what it can look like 4 months from then. Okay. This is an actual client that I have inside my program right now. This is her first month's testing. Okay. You guys see she is low in everything except for testosterone and estrone. Okay. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down arrows. They're saying she is deficient. Okay. So what we did is we took this and we were already working on her nutrition. Okay. This client went through a lot of crazy life changes. She wasn't able to go to the gym as much, but she did get daily movement in, and we changed her nutrition. And on top of that, we added in a custom hormone protocol with bioidentical supplements, no HRT, no pellets, no patches, just bioidentical supplements. And you guys will see on her second test, look what that looks like. Look how beautiful that is. So we still have some down arrows in estradiol and DHEA. But on here, you guys can see, look how much these increased. Okay. We went from DHEA of 46 to DHEA of 85. Estradiol, we went from 0.50 to 0.70. Okay. Everything else has come up within normal range and is beautiful. Okay. But how does your hormones correlate to your fat loss? Okay. I know you guys hear me say this all the time, that your fat loss correlate directly to what your hormones are doing. Your hormones correlate directly to what you're putting in your mouth and what types of things you're doing with your body throughout the day. Okay. But again, let's look at this. For those of you guys looking or watching, you guys can see the difference in this body composition. Okay. She had a lower abdominal pooch. She had that going on. She had a pretty wide area around her hips and her upper quad and thigh area, right? Her hips themselves were not indented at all. You couldn't really see her hips or her waist. Right now, we can see all of those things, and we are still working. Okay. We are still doing a custom protocol with way less supplements than we were before. I think she's only on 2 supplements now. And we're still doing the nutrition, and she's still just doing her life thing and enjoying life. And these are the results she's getting. Okay. Again, this is because she paid attention to what her hormones are doing. She listened to her body, and she was compliant with the things that we gave her. And those things work. Okay. Bottom line, these things work. There is no doubt in my mind, if a woman comes to me and says, hey, I have hormone imbalance, or I can't lose weight, that I can't help them as long as they follow along with what we give them. There has not been one person that hasn't been successful. Okay. So this just gives you guys a little bit of an insight on what those hormones do, how we look at them in the hormone test, and how they play a part in what you're seeing body composition wise. And now what we'll do is we'll get into the hormone testing, okay, and why I choose a comprehensive saliva test. So the reason I choose a comprehensive saliva test is a couple different reasons. One, it's comprehensive, right? I say comprehensive because a lot of tests that you guys can do are not comprehensive. And what I mean by that is it doesn't give us all the answers to the things that we need to be able to know what's going on. Okay. Again, if we're just testing your T3, T4, your thyroid, and we're testing one estrogen, that's not enough. Okay. It's just not enough. So I like this test because it gives us a snapshot of what's going on for all of those hormones we spoke about. And it gives us a snapshot 4 times throughout the day. Okay. This is different from a blood draw, because at a blood draw, you're going to go in, you're going to get it taken, and that's going to tell you what your hormones are doing at that specific time. But as you know, women, ladies, we have highs, we have lows, like we feel these things throughout the day, right? So if we're not testing those highs and lows, how do we know how our body's adjusting? How do we know what those numbers are doing, right? So that's why I choose the comprehensive saliva test. It's super easy. I send you this box. For those of you watching, you guys can see this. It has the self-addressed envelope that you guys send back in. Everything's here for you. You get 4 vials. All you do is spit in these little vials 4 times throughout the day. And that is going to tell us exactly what's going on. So this is not only going to give us a starting point for your nutrition plan, but this is also going to tell us, and Doc's going to be able to give us your custom protocol to be able to start balancing out these hormones just based on these 4 little vials of saliva. It's absolutely crazy. It's amazing. It's so easy to do. literally everything that you need is directly inside of this box, sent directly to you. It goes to the lab, and then within 7 to 10 business days, we have that back and we schedule a call with Doc and we go over it. On that call with Doc, he tells you what we're seeing, why we're seeing it, and what we need to be doing nutritionally in order to support these hormone imbalances, or to support the hormone protocol that he's giving us to fix the hormone imbalances, right? So as you guys can see, from starting at the beginning of this series to where we talked about the red flags, the things that you're noticing, the issues burning fat, the irritability, the hair loss, the bad menstrual cycles, the lack of libido, all the way to the things that we can start on a daily basis to reverse those, to where we can actually gain control and know what's going on with a hormone test and why we utilize this hormone test. So hopefully you guys were able to get a lot of good information from this series and understanding kind of what we look for, how I utilize it, what benefits my clients see, and how we work with the functional medicine practitioner to make sure that we are doing everything we can for you guys to be able to balance your hormones long term. Okay, I'm going to end you guys with this, and this is something that I want to hit on, is that anything that we do inside the program as far as protocol goes is not meant for you to use long term. Okay, we always use the analogy of whenever your car dies and it doesn't have any battery, we have to connect it with some jumper cables, right? That's all we're doing with this hormone protocol, is we're utilizing this as a jump start to get your body to start doing these things naturally. Yes, there are instances where people who have had hysterectomies, different medical conditions to where they might have to utilize things more long-term. But generally speaking, every single client that's come through my program has been able to come off their hormone protocol and be able to maintain those results. And they also have access to retesting, which is huge, right? So I hope you guys found this helpful. I'm super excited to finish up this series. I'm super excited to connect with all of you guys who have reached out. Again, if you guys are interested in learning more about hormone testing and learning about how we can utilize this inside of my program and how I can help you burn fat, transform your body, and balance hormones in 3 to 6 months, definitely take a look at the show notes and DM me to get that special offer. But for now, thank you guys all so much for joining me. And as always, keep it unfiltered.
If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode, and for that, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I hope you enjoyed this new episode, and if you did, please leave me a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And as always, keep it unfiltered.